Greetings and welcome to Enigmatic. I love how I make a comment about, oh, I'm going to be consistent. No, 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 no. A month later, another video. You know, there's a lot of different frameworks for understanding different phenomena that we encounter the world over. Out in the West, we have mental health, and we have all these diagnoses for certain permutations of phenomena that we may experience. And it's kind of interesting because, one paradigm will think that another paradigm is missing something, and then the paradigm that they think is missing something might think that they're missing something. And there's just a lack of cohesion. There's too much of we think better than you think in the world, I feel like. It's hard for people to be humble in that way. I mention all this because I talk a lot about mental health on here, and I'm perpetually trying to figure my own shit out. One thing that I may or may not have been diagnosed with in the past is ADHD. I say I may or may not have been diagnosed because for a lot of the diagnoses that I've received, there's a categorical denial about them. So when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, if I'm not mistaken, the very first thing that came out of my mouth was, "But I've never been to war," which shows a lack of understanding on my part at that age for the aspects of PTSD that can be shown in someone. But with consistency and things like that, I feel like it's something that I have struggled with for most of my life, and I unfortunately tend to diminish and castigate myself because of it. I think that I'm just not disciplined enough. I think that I'm weak, or I'm just not good enough, right? But at the same time, I don't want to be like an armchair psychologist. I do know a fair amount about psychology, and I like to keep my nose in the DSM-5, but I am not formally trained in that, and I am aware that diagnosing a lot of mental health concerns and issues, it's a process, and it's a nuanced process, and I'm not going to just automatically assume that I understand all the nuance to then diagnose myself. Not only that, but with mental health, it's a little bit harder for you to diagnose yourself as well, because you have the cognitive biases, heuristics, and mental tricks that your own mind plays on itself and on you to deal with as well. So to a certain degree, you would be able to trust a mental health diagnosis that comes from yourself, depending on what it is. But I'm fully aware that I have the genetic trait of sensory processing sensitivity. And if we were to create a Venn diagram, there's actually a lot of overlap with that in ADHD. And while I'm fully aware that it's possible to have the genetic trait of sensory processing sensitivity, but then also have the disorder that is ADHD, for some reason I just always, defaulted all the issues that I have that might be ADHD to sensory processing sensitivity. So in a certain way, I kind of did like a bit of a disservice to myself. But the reason I keep talking about this is because first thing I said was I love how I talk about being consistent, and I never am. And it's like maybe I'm not giving myself the grace I need to in order to be able to be conducive and consistent with something like this. So it's just something interesting that I'm navigating at the moment. Since I am operating under the assumption right now that I do have ADHD, I've kind of dropped the rock on some things that I've been pretty hard on myself about. So, for example, if I start doing something and then for one reason or another my brain just shuts down and checks out, then I just go and do something else and then allow myself to come back to that other thing instead of trying to force myself to finish while also beating myself up for not wanting to finish or for my mind checking out. It's just something that kind of happens automatically. So it's something that happens to me, not something that I can necessarily control at all times. Which, highlights the idea that we only have so much control of even ourselves. We don't have any control of what happens to us. We have a certain kind of an amount of control for how we can respond to things. So yeah. So it's good to be back. It's good to be talking. I got got another Nebula light. I got another phone, so I'm hoping that I can be comfortable expressing myself on here more often, find my own direction, and yeah, just keep it going. So I thank you for listening. I hope that you were able to get something out of it. If not, just thank you so much for your support. Be good to you, be good to others, and take care. Talk to you next time.